Hello and welcome to DigFin VOX, Voices in Digital Finance. I'm your host, Jame DiBiasio. If you enjoy the program, give us a like, share, subscribe. My guest today is Tim Ying, CEO of Octopus in Hong Kong, the operator of stored value facilities that are ubiquitous in our transport systems and elsewhere. Tim has been CEO of Octopus just for about 6 months. We talked about his vision for taking this company into new frontiers, going from closed loop to open payments, working with partners to go cross-border, and most exciting for us in Hong Kong, going into taxis. Tim Ying, welcome to DigFin VOX.
Hi, James. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. Octopus is probably the OG of fintech in Hong Kong. You guys just recently celebrated your 25th anniversary. And I think it's a little bit hard for people who are maybe new to Hong Kong or don't know that much about Octopus to appreciate what you, maybe before your time, but what the organization achieved back then and through those 25 years. So I want to start with a little history before we get into the future. So what was the core thing that enabled Octopus, in partnership with the Hong Kong Transport Authority, to become such a game changer in when it comes to payments, mobile payments, transport payments?
Yep, James. No, I'm happy to go down a trip of memory lane. I think I'm not sure if you're a Marvel fan. Every Marvel superhero kind of has their origin story. Octopus is no different. 25 plus years ago, it's actually quite a. I read I actually recently read a book by Rob Noble, who was the first CEO of Octopus, right? And he talked a little bit about it, and it's actually a really, really interesting story. And it's essentially, one day the 5 major transport operators in Hong Kong gathered around a table and said that, hey, we're going to invest millions of dollars into this new technology. And mind you, this was 25 plus years ago, where contactless payments didn't exist. So people didn't actually know what contactless payment was, right? And the 5 major transport operators gathered around the table and said, we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to invest in this new technology, contactless payments, because we believe that it'll deliver a better customer experience. Right. So I think that it really is the origin of Octopus. And it's actually, if you fast forward to today's world, it's actually really, really brave, really, really dynamic. I think to get 5 key transport operators gather around table, invest millions of dollars, unproven technology, simply because they believed it'll create a better user experience, is amazing, right?
Yeah.
And that's really where our origin came from. It's part of our DNA. To this day, people, more than 99% of people in Hong Kong use Octopus because we provide a better user experience.
Yeah, and then after that came Oyster in London, and these others. And as somebody based in Hong Kong for many years, it was amazing to see other places first copy that technology, but also equally amazing to go back to places like New York City, where which is where I was before Hong Kong, and kind of struggle with the fact that they had not copied this technology. So that's amazing. But okay, no resting on one's laurels. Let's go back. One other piece of history, though, more recent, which is COVID. So, I've been in Hong Kong since 1997. So I've had an Octopus card since they put out the first debit stored value card, stored value facility around that time. And so I always used it, but I only used it for the trains and maybe the buses if I took them. But then come COVID, I noticed that it was already available at some of the merchants that you would find in the train stations underground. So 7-Eleven might have, you could maybe buy something there with the Octopus card. But even in that, it's pretty rare. I think people were still using cash for most things. And then with COVID, the government was pushing these voucher schemes to compensate for the economic problems that everybody was facing with with lockdowns and such. And obviously, Octopus, along with others, Alipay, WeChat Pay, etc., were authorized to basically receive these payments. And I noticed that I don't know if it was that or something else, but in my own personal life, I found I was using Octopus not just in the train stations, but today I use it virtually everywhere in Hong Kong that accepts, most shops now accept it. So what was how much of this was was COVID just an accelerator of things that have been building, or was there real policy changes both in the company or with the merchant base or with the government? What happened there to kind of make that switch?
I think it's a bit of mix of all of the above. I think for industry change movement to be able to happen, a lot of times you have to have the stars aligned. And I think in this case, if you look at, I know you mentioned Oyster in London, right? You mentioned a couple of other markets, Singapore, New York, et cetera, et cetera. If you look at the markets where contactless transport cards have really gained usage, engagement, stickiness, it has been the markets where it hasn't been limited to just transport. Right.
Okay.
Where it's a blend of both retail and transport. And I think for Octopus, as you mentioned, we've been part of Hong Kong people's daily lives since 1997. It's really, part of the collective culture. And I think when COVID struck, the government really wanted to be able to push the e-payment industry forward, e-payment adoption within Hong Kong. And hence, they've started to be able to distribute these consumption vouchers via the major e-payment wallets within Hong Kong. And I think that, for a lot of folks who, perhaps in the past weren't as familiar with e-payments or mobile wallets, right? That was, one of the bigger catalysts that really got people over the line as well, both on the retail side, merchant side, and also on the consumer side.
Yeah, but I think it's also important to note what Octopus is not. So if you're going to use Octopus, whether it's through the card like I have, or some people also use it on their phone, or you can also use it online, you're either paying direct, so the 7-Eleven or whomever has an Octopus reader, or perhaps via a more generic terminal payment machine that accepts different types of payments, as opposed to being a QR code reader. So just talk us a little bit through about the design decisions behind this. What are the advantages and what are the disadvantages to the way that you're set up?
Sure. I think when you look at kind of the various different payment solutions that are out there today, right? I think you could broadly categorize that into contactless as well as QR, right? And I think both have its advantages and disadvantages. I think if you look at more markets where have more mature payment infrastructure, a contactless is quite dominant, right? So whether it be credit card or stored value facilities, such as Octopus, or in other markets, other transport payment facilities as well. Whereas, in a lot of larger scale markets where historically payment infrastructure hasn't been as mature, a QR code has really taken hold and taken stream, right? So I don't think necessarily one is better or worse. They're different. I think they serve different purposes to different audiences as well. I think when you're talking about transport specifically, one of the reasons why it's really taken root within Hong Kong is because of the speed and convenience of Octopus, right? So Imagine if you're in Central on the MTR station, the subway station, you don't want to be that guy standing in front of the turnstile, right? Trying to be able to fumble your phone to be able to take out a QR code with 20 guys waiting in front of you, right? You want the speed and convenience to be able to tap and just go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We've all had that painful experience somewhere in our lives of being that person in the queue who's holding it all up. So, okay, we've talked about the past. Let's talk about looking forward, because obviously that's what really people are interested in. You mentioned that that success has to go beyond just being within the transport system, that you can do other things. So what else are you looking at? And is that just about finding other touch points, or is there more than just payments or more than just stored value facility kind of services that you've got on the drawing board?
I've joined Octopus a bit over 6 months ago, and so I'm 6 months old into the role, right? But I think one of the really cool and interesting things that I noticed when I came into Octopus is that and a lot of this the outside world may not know is that we really do a lot of really cool stuff inside. In terms of our staff, we're 50% tech, right? So more than 50% of our staff are engineers, are developers. We actually have a lot of innovation that happens behind the scenes, and we're one of the few companies in Hong Kong that's able to do both hardware and software. Right. So, and I think so in my mind, if we're 50% tech, right, and we're doing a lot of really cool innovations, in my mind, we're a tech company, right? And I think when we look at tech companies, really what tech companies are all about is how do you use technology to be able to solve customer pain points? It may be a bit controversial, but I don't necessarily view Octopus as a payment company per se. Because if you look at, for example, the ways of how you put money into Octopus, right? There's a couple different ways. You could do cash, you could do credit card, or you could do bank transfer via FPS. Now, all of the above, you can already do payments with those funding sources, right? Whether it's cash, credit, or bank transfer.
Right. And I use all three. Sure.
Exactly. So why would customers take that extra step to be able to put money into Octopus via those three means? Those three means. It's because Octopus provides a better customer experience. So that's really what the business that we're in, right? I don't think that we're actually in the payment business, because Hong Kong is a very mature payment market. There's multiple various different payment means available. If customers choose us, it's because we provide a better customer experience. If customers don't choose us, right, and there's various different categories where customers haven't chosen us, it's because we haven't provided a better customer experience. Right? So I think that's really the main focus, for Octopus heading into the future is, how do we be really customer centric, customer obsessed in those categories where we feel that we have a right to win.
Where do you see the pain points that you want to address in 2024 and forward?
I think one of the key focus areas for us is that for folks not in Hong Kong, may not be able to appreciate how deeply rooted Octopus is in everyday life within Hong Kong, right? So over 99% of people in Hong Kong have at least one or often 2 or 3 different Octopus cards, right? It's part of daily life. A lot of folks in terms of their building have to be able to use Octopus for access management for estate. So if you don't have Octopus, you literally cannot enter your building. You literally cannot go up the elevator, right? So it's deeply ingrained in people's lives. Now, we with 99% penetration, over 20 million active cards in a city of 7.5 million. One of the big focus areas for us is we want to go where our customers go, right? And as our customers become more mobile, become more digital savvy, we also want to be able to embrace that mobile first direction. So one of the big focus areas is how do we move folks from plastic to phone, and to be able to utilize the mobile channel to be able to really provide a better customer experience, real-time engagement, and also to be able to allow for folks to be able to better manage their day-to-day finances and day-to-day payment budgeting as well. So that's really priority number one for us is
So
moving us to
yeah,
phone.
so are you talking about a personal wealth management kind of service that you're thinking about?
Not I think that's one potential option, right? I think once people are you're able to move people from plastic to phone, it opens up a whole lot of other doors, a whole bunch of other opportunities, right? So whether it's online e-commerce, right, or whether it's cross-border payment, whether it is personal financing, budgeting, right, it opens up a whole bunch of other doors for us. And so that's really one of the big focus areas. We already have really good traction. I think 1 out of every three people in Hong Kong today have Octopus on their mobile phone, whether it's through the app or through Apple, one of Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, or Huawei Pay.
Mhm.
But that's not good enough, right? Today we're in every pocket. We don't just want to be in every pocket. We want to be on every phone.
Okay. And when you think about some of those services looking ahead, you can't just do those things by yourself. Obviously, if it's the card, you still need the merchant to accept Octopus and have a terminal or have some means of accepting. But if you go on the phone and you want to go into these broader kind of things, whether it's cross-border, e-commerce, some sort of personal financial management systems, um, you need I guess, open banking or other kinds of partnerships. What does that look to you? Because my understanding of Octopus is that traditionally these are closed loop systems. I put money into the Octopus, it gets used to be paid for certain services. I can't take really money out. It's a debit function, and I can't use it for other types of payments. I can only use it for within that one system. So uh, how do you manage the closed loop nature of Octopus with talking about these other opportunities, which to me seem to imply much more of an open data sharing or funds transfer kind of cross platform or cross entity uh, activities. Do I have that right, or am I thinking it the right way, or am I?
No,
Uh,
I think absolutely. For Octopus, we want to be able to partner. We want to be able to collaborate. We want to be able to embrace other industry players as well, right? I think when you look at some of the more interesting and innovative products that we've brought to market to date, we've just this past week we've opened up our merchant network
mhm.
for the first time in our 25 plus year history, specifically for taxis.
Okay.
Right. And it's because, if for any foreign travelers, foreign tourists coming to Hong Kong, I think one of the biggest pain points that people face is the lack of acceptance of e-payments within taxis today. Right.
Yeah.
I call that the last missing link for transport. Right. If you go to MTR, if you go on the subways, if you go on the buses, e-payment is we have a fairly robust and mature e-payment system, various different options. We've just opened up acceptance of credit card as well on subways. So I think taxis is really that last missing link in transport, and where it makes sense for our customers, where it makes sense for the end merchant, where it makes sense for the Hong Kong people, tourists, locals, and tourists alike. We want to be able to embrace partners to be able to help make Hong Kong that cashless society that we aspire to be.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I want to take a little segue and go down that taxi rabbit hole. We'll try to keep it kind of short, but for people who are outside of Hong Kong, I'm sure uh, the audience of DigFin VOX certainly visits here regularly, and you would know that, yeah, you arrive somewhat haggardly, stumbling out of your airplane, and suddenly you need actual physical cash if you want to get a taxi at the airport, and it's a bit of a shock to people who are used to not having to use that. But why is the reason? What is this has been something that's been discussed kind of ad nauseum in this city for quite some time. What do you see has been the major blockage, the major reason why it hasn't happened to date, and why is it now? Do you think there's going to be change?
I don't, first of all, I don't think it's because of lack of trying. I think, within the industry over the past many years, there's been a lot of effort to be able to move taxis onto e-payment, right? I think there's probably various different reasons behind this, in terms of, some people look at cash as a means to be able to get extra tips, right? So that, if there's change, a lot of people just say, hey, keep the change, right? So there's various different reasons behind why there's still such a big stickiness to cash. For Octopus, our mission is to be able to eliminate cash, right? Is to make Hong Kong a cashless society. And if it takes if it takes the entire industry to work together to be able to get taxis to go cashless, then that's what we'll do, and that's what we've done, right? And that's why we've opened up our network to other industry players.
What's the change up? Because my understanding, I'm not a transport expert, but I was contrasting the Hong Kong MTR and use of Octopus within that to New York City, for example, which was still just your pay-as-you-go turnstile. But where these two cities are very alike is in taxis, where you've basically got the taxis are owned by a small group of licensees, token holders. It's not really owned by the drivers. The drivers are just renting these. So the drivers don't really have the power here. I mean, they might grumble, but they're not the ones that are going to call the shots on what kind of payments that the owner of that taxi or that fleet will accept. So what is happening at that level that is now changing, where these people that have these very lucrative, because there's so few of them, licenses to own the taxis that get operated, what's changing their minds that they're now like, okay, well, I'll open this up, or I'll make the necessary investments in the fleet to enable new types of payment?
I think, for change to happen within an industry, you need to have willing participants from both sides. I think the old adage, right? It takes two to tango. So I think it's both a factor of, the drivers, right, are also the taxi operators looking to be able to embrace new technology. But also the industry and the ecosystem creating more innovative ways to be able to have consumers to be able to push the demand to be able to have the taxi operators move towards e-payment as well. So I think it's a mix of both, right? And it takes two to dance.
Yeah. You mentioned that you're, for the first time, opening your network in the case of the taxi. Explain how that works, and do you see this as an experiment, perhaps, for other uses in the Octopus empire, or do you expect this will remain limited just to taxis because of a particular problem?
We still like to be able to view ourselves as a fintech startup, but
Okay.
in
It's a good
terms of
attitude.
yeah, but in terms of opening up our network, essentially within the various different taxis, Octopus has one of the largest driver network. We have over 21,000 drivers that are registered via Octopus, and when we open up our network, essentially what now riders will be able to do is that when they arrive at their destination, they'll be able to choose to either tap with their Octopus card, or they'll be able to choose to be able to use their QR wallet. Today, we accept UnionPay and also Alipay Mainland and Alipay Hong Kong, to be able to use their QR wallet to be able to scan the Octopus reader for payment as well.
Okay.
I think in terms of, when we talk about kind of the philosophy or the kind of the business philosophy of what we want to be able to head to, more industry collaboration, more open loop, more means of and use cases of how you can engage with Octopus is really the direction we're going. Just last in December, we've also joined in on the government payment rail, Hong Kong government payment rail, together with Thailand, to be able to allow for people to use Octopus when they're traveling overseas to Thailand. You're leveraging the local prompt pay rails as well.
Yeah.
So essentially, as a tourist, you'll be able to use your Octopus wallet, you'll be able to use your Octopus app, and pay like a local whilst you are in Thailand.
Okay.
And it's been we've seen incredibly momentum and incredible usage on that as well.
Okay, so I got two quick questions before we wrap
Sure.
this up. One still on the taxi, and then one going back to working with prompt pay in Thailand. So on the taxi issue, you talk about opening up and obviously accepting payment from, say, Alipay, whether it's mainland version or Hong Kong, through the Octopus network in a taxi. There are also some fintechs that are also trying to become I guess the portal to enable similar outcomes. Would you be open to allowing, say, a fintech to accept Octopus and then you go through their channel in a taxi situation?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Whatever's the best for drivers, for riders, and for people in Hong Kong. Absolutely. Completely open.
Great. And then last question on this Thailand tie-up, which I think is super fascinating. In ASEAN, and even across from ASEAN to India, they've been leveraging their faster payment systems, their digital infrastructure via QRs, right? These are QR-enabled things so that now most people in ASEAN, if they have the ability now to travel within that region and use their phone-based QR system, and essentially they're transacting as if it's directly into their own bank account, right? It's or into their own accounts, whether it's a bank account or some sort of e-wallet. But you guys aren't QR based. So what's the difference between what you're doing with prompt pay versus what's going on within these QR networks integrating Southeast Asia, and what has to happen for Hong Kong via Octopus or someone else to really integrate into that theme? Because I think there's a point at which, Indonesia, Malaysia, they'll say, well, you should do it our way, not we do it your way. So how do you see that playing out?
We're more than happy to be able to integrate into the local network, right? So, if the local network within Thailand is QR based, via prompt pay, right? That's what we've done as well. So via the Octopus wallet, I actually traveled to Thailand, in earlier this year, and typically when I travel abroad, I'll have anxiety, right, in terms of how much cash to be able to exchange. If I exchange too much cash, then I have to exchange it back. If I exchange too little cash, then I get stuck. And this time around when I went, I only had to exchange a little bit of cash, and the remainder I was able to pay with Octopus, riding on the local prompt pay rails.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's through the mobile version, I assume, not
Exactly. So hence, why the big focus for us to be able to move folks from plastic to phone, because it opens up a whole bunch of other doors, right? Whether it's when you're going to Thailand, to be able to use the local rails via prompt pay, or if you're going to mainland China, we also have a virtual debit card via UnionPay to be able to allow for folks to use the Octopus wallet while they're in mainland China. And most recently, actually just this week, we've announced that we're going to be able to allow for payment interoperability of our Octopus card to be accepted at all 320 cities in mainland China in terms of transport.
Okay. That's
so interoperability, the extension of use cases within Hong Kong and beyond is really the name of the game.
Right. So then last thing is, obviously there's a limit on how much I can put on my Octopus card. I think it's 3,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is what, 400 US maybe. So if I want to go to Thailand, I want to spend a week there. That's probably not enough. So is there with the mobile version, is there a higher cap? Can I use that fully, or am I going to be limited by the amount I can put on that stored value facility?
Yeah. So within the mobile version, we do have a much higher cap.
Okay.
I was looking at the numbers just now, actually, and the spend on prompt pay in Thailand ranged anywhere from $1 to $7,000.
Right.
So per ticket, per transaction, right? And that included things like wet markets. It also included things like golf courses, even people that go into the orthodontist, and Michelin star restaurants, right? So the mobile version of Octopus really does open up doors to be able to allow for more diverse use cases within Hong Kong and abroad.
Okay, I think we're gonna have to leave it there. I'm sure we can keep going, but I want to respect your time, Tim. Thank you very much for joining me on DigFin VOX, and I look forward to upgrading to the mobile version.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Jame.